Good morning and welcome to the house of the Lord today. You know, Christ is still resurrected. You know that, right? I mean, just as much as he was last week, he's still resurrected. So that hope that we have within us is not set for a day each spring. It is set for a lifetime. It's the long haul benefit that we get as believers that Jesus Christ has indeed risen. Well, we're looking in 1 Corinthians. We're in chapter 16, the final chapter of the book where he writes to men. Paul never one time mentions a family loss. He never mentions a wife. He never mentions children or grandchildren. But he does mention, in the book of Philippians, he says, through a difficult time in his life, he's sitting in a jail cell, and he is reevaluating his life. It's very important that we do that. He's looking at it all, and he says this, I have suffered the loss of all things. And we've experienced loss. This will be my second funeral of losing two good men. The first one walked into my office. I led him to Christ. The following week, we baptized him, and for 19 years. Then he wanted to be a Gideon. Then he wanted to do jail ministry. And then every Wednesday, he would go to the jail. He was a Gideon, handing out Bibles everywhere that he could. So I knew him 19 years, and the other one I only knew 19 months. But there was something special. There was a lot of great things that happened last week at Easter Sunday. But I told Jan the thing that I think spoke to my heart more than anything was after church, I looked back there where you see Bruce right there. If you'll turn, you see that's Ronnie's IFR judging vest and shirt that he wore, and that's his hat that he judged with. But he was sitting there, and there was a long line of people. And I said to Jan, you know what's going on? She said, what? I said, they're saying goodbye. We had no idea of it. And it spoke to my heart in a great, great way of we as believers get a special treat that the world never, ever tastes. They do not get that. That's why when it comes to death, they're running up and down the halls of the hospital. They're screaming and they're crying and they're kicking. But we as believers know that he is resurrected from the dead, and we're going to be with him. To be absent from this old body is to be present with the Lord. Some of you this morning, I watched, you're walking a little gingerly on one leg or one knee. We are a body. The church is a body. He calls us that over and over in Ephesians. He calls us that in 1 Corinthians as well. We're this body. And you see, it requires, the body needs every part. The body needs every member working. The body needs every inch of movement and life and breath that we can possibly get. So when we talk about this morning to men, and so you women can just take a break. But now you make sure if there's a man anywhere close to you, you just keep punching. Because Paul ends this thing about men. He does say, I've suffered the loss of all things and do count them as dung that I may win Christ and be found in him. Amen. So when he starts chapter 16, he starts off talking about money and the offerings, how it should be. And he's talking to men. And then he calls these certain men out. He calls out Stephanus, who was one of the first families saved. Now, Paul stayed there 18 months with these people, started a church. He loved them when he walked away and headed on to Ephesus. But for 18 months, he built this church with these people. And Stephanus and his home were one of the first families, so he called them first fruits. And so he called out Stephanus, then he called out Fortunatus, and then he called out Achaeus. And he said, these guys, they're something. But if you look in verse 13, the reason I say this to men, man up, is this. He says, watch you. Stand fast in the faith. If you have a King James Bible, it says, quit ye like men. Quit ye like men. Be a man. Quit ye like men. Be a man. I think the new translation says, be brave. Be strong. And then whatever you do, do in the Lord. There are 5 marks of a man. This morning we're going to look, if you'll go with me to 1 Corinthians 16, how that God uses men. We are in a culture that has declared war on men. They now tell us, in fact, the CDC said this week, a lady who runs that operation, here's what she said. Racism is now the number one culprit or problem with the coronavirus, that it has caused much sorrow. Now, I'm telling you, I'm not near as good in math as Brother Benny is, but that makes no sense to me. That makes absolutely no sense to me, how that we're going to pull racism in on a virus that has come from across the sea. See, the world will use literally every tactic and every tool in an arsenal that will break down the one thing that Christ, the one thing that the apostles built up, and that is to love. That is to love one another. So we're going to look today at men. Now, I'm asking you men, please don't be easily offended today. Do not be easily offended. That is not my intent nor my heart. I love you guys. God uses men. God uses women. And we are a body. Without the women, every church I've ever been in would collapse in about 12 minutes. But today, we're talking to M-E-N, men. There are 5 marks of a man. In fact, the outline is very, very simple. There are men. They are to have ministry. And there is a message inside of their heart that is to resonate with them every day. 5 marks of a man. Number 1. Watch ye. Watch ye. Be spiritual alert. We're not alert today. We have given ground away spiritually to the world. And that's why the reason that this bunch that has risen over the last 50 years hate men so much is the family was going to be broken down, and the first way you do it is to destroy the leadership in the family. When you destroy the leadership in the family, you get what they're producing. The second thing that they were going to do is not only will we destroy leadership, but we will break the meaning of family down. It can now mean literally anything you want it to mean. You can concoct your own family. You can make it what you choose to make it. And you can only do that when the men are broken down, when the men are not spiritually alert. What's the first mark of a spiritual man, Paul says? Watch. Be spiritually alert to danger. Now, every one of you in here, every one of you men, every one of you young boys that are here, you know what this means, even though you may not know what it means. It's in your spirit to do. When my family is present and we're all in one place, my job or my role for them is still, even though they're either in college or out of college or in service, marrying or whatever, but is to watch what and listen to what I'm hearing. What am I hearing y'all say? What am I seeing you do? Where are you on Sunday morning? What are you doing? I'm to be spiritually alert to danger just as I would be when I'm walking through the barn in the springtime and you're looking for snakes. I was walking down in the highlands of Guatemala, and there's a snake there that's called a two-step. And I'm walking with this two national pastors, and we're building a church way up in the highlands. And the more the missionary tells me about the snake, the more I am walking like this. Why? Because he's already put in my mind that there's a snake. We came to the end of this trail, and it's jungle. It's all jungle. I didn't know if they were going to jump down top of my head, wrap around me. I didn't know what they were going to do. If they're going to spring up out of the earth. But anyway, I'm looking all over. I'm looking. Why? Because he has put me on alert to danger. That's what a man's number 1 maturity degree is. Be alert to spiritual danger. You'll see things your wife doesn't see. You'll see things your kids don't see. You'll see things that you need to take stock of and wear and say, not here. How many of you remember when your kids are growing up and they come out, maybe your daughter comes out with an outfit on, and you look at them and you say, What's the first thing that she says? Come on, help me out. What's the first thing she says? Everybody else is wearing it, Daddy. I know, I ain't their daddy. Go change. Oh, and my daughters did it with a lovely spirit and such submission. That I didn't really care. Why? I'm alert to spiritual danger. First hallmark of a man, be alert. Be spiritually alert. Be spiritually alert. I'm telling you, fellas, you can't go to sleep. You got to wake up. You got to understand that this culture it's not about you. You've survived it. You're going to make it. It's your children. It's your grandchildren. It's those babies back there. It's those kids back in those rooms. We got to be spiritually alert for them. He says, hey, no, you need to back off. You get too fired up about stuff. I am telling you, I'm not near fired up enough to be spiritually alert to the danger of our boys and girls. Because this culture didn't only want to just take the man out, break the family down, but Sodom and Gomorrah has come to the front street. And that's all you can say. And I know everybody, we all put 2 Chronicles 7:14 on there and say, pray. Listen, you might as well quit posting that. You might as well quit hoping for that until the men, the spiritual men in this country, get on their knees and pray and beg God to bring his blessings back upon us through the confessions that we're making of our sin. It's not going to happen any other way. Men, he says, listen, be spiritually alert. Word number 2, the second mark of a man. He says, watch you, be spiritually alert. Be strong in the faith. Wow. Be strong in the faith. Now we know that faith, from Hebrews chapter 11, the great hallmark of faith in chapter 11. And then chapter 12, he talks about now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And we know by faith that we please God. We know that everything that we walk in must be by faith. So men, I am asking you today, what is the faith meter saying in your life right now? What is the faith meter saying? Are you walking by faith? Are you leading your family by faith? Are you leading this church by faith? You know, the thing that I see so prevalent in Christian men is an apathy toward things that they have got to have a spirit for. Which, what are you saying? I'm saying when you see a younger person not walking in faith, not living in that, don't say, oh, well, I hope it gets better. Nail them. Call them off to the side. I love some of the comments that I've seen about Brother Ronnie, how, and we've talked about it several times, how he could take young boys, and if they'd be out there on the farm, I mean, he'd jerk a knot in them. Y'all understand that phrase. You know what I'm saying? Why? He would see things, got to be changed, got to be fixed. Not only spiritually alert to dangers in them, but being strong in the faith. Be strong in the faith. The last thing Ronnie said about his own walk was, I can't do much anything else, but I can be faithful. I can be faithful. That is a volume inside of itself, is it not? I can be faithful. So, what's the first mark of a man? Watch you. Be spiritually alert to danger. Number 2, stand strong in the faith. And I love this concept. He's talking to men. He's not saying to you ladies, get out in front of your, well, if you just, I'm stronger than my husband is. I don't care. Let him lead. If he won't lead, make him lead. You say, but you know, here's the thing. Our family just works better if I just hands off. Let her take care of the money. Let her take care of the problems. Let her buy the cars. Let her do the deal. Let her da-da-da. And then I'll do the hard stuff. I'm telling you, there's nothing more definitive in a man who will stand strong in the faith. Word number 3. What's the hallmark of a man? Quit ye like men. We are raising. I asked you not to be easily offended today, did I not? So it's not my fault from this point forward. We are raising a mamby-pamby, weak-kneed, panty-waist generation of boys. Now you say, not at our farm, and thank God for you, but get more out there on the farm. You want to know why youth ministries are failing in churches? It wasn't because of COVID. It was falling apart anyway. We've done everything in the world to entice kids to have everything we didn't have, but we're not giving them the one thing that we did have, which was strong kids. I never went to a youth group in my life. I mean, I never had a student pastor in my entire life. We had 2 volunteers that once a month would take us kids skating or something. That's how I met Jan. That's how we dated. And the only date we ever had was when the church was going to go skating. I never had a student pastor. Never. We grew up, I mean, our kids went to church like everybody else. They heard the preacher like everybody else. And they got strong like everybody else. The whole concept of this be a man is not that this culture has decided that they want to effeminate man, because that's what they've done. We did it with our television. We made Papa the irrelevant one sitting in the corner. Blah, 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 blah. I'm the daddy of this whole, I don't know what I'm doing. It's not a man to produce a child, but a man. He said, be a man. Quit ye like men. Be a man. Stand up and tell the truth. If you've lied about something, go confess it to your family. If you've defrauded someone, go get it back. It's not asking us to be perfect. It's asking us to be men. To be men. Oh, one of the things I have a low tolerance for is men who stand around and gripe. I don't like gripe. And I'm not talking about when you come. I'm just talking about in life. You walk in the grocery store, they're griping about this. You walk out here, they're griping about that. Every one of us have experienced loss. There are people here today that is experiencing loss even as I'm speaking. I understand that. But when he says, quit ye like men, he's talking about in the face of opposition, in the face of tribulation, in the face of hard times, would you, for crying out loud, be a man about it? Man, I tell you, you can talk about me, you can do anything you want, but for crying out loud, be a man about it. We need men today, just so desperately. And when I see a boy, there was one waiting on me the other day, and he walked up to the table where Jan and I were sitting. He said, "May I help you?" I'm not mad at him. I'm not angry with him. He didn't have a daddy to teach him how to be a man. He didn't have a daddy to say, this is how you talk, this is how you walk because you're a man. When a nation decides that they're going to bring Sodom and Gomorrah to the schoolhouse, to Front Street, Main Street, and when our governments decide, you know what, the best thing we can do for our children is don't tell them they're a man or a woman, let them figure it out. We need men. The only thing that's ever going to stop is Christian men defining what Christian men should do. Be a man. When we mess up, we confess it. That's what a man does. Men don't like to confess things. Men don't like to turn around and go backwards. Men hate GPS. We don't like Google Maps. Why? It's fine. They don't know where you go. Just go straight on down the road. Just keep going. Curvature of the earth will get us sooner or later. We're going to be heading in the right direction. We confess nothing. We fail at nothing. We do not want to deal with these things that are privately destroying not only the fabric of family, but the fabric of church life all over the country. Men stand when your pastors are standing, and I love working with our staff. I love these guys and Miss Beck. I love this church. I can't hardly wait to get here every Sunday, and I'm looking at, where are all y'all? Come on, let's go. I love being here. I love being your pastor. But I know one thing for sure. We're one generation away from losing manhood. We're just one more slip away from losing manhood. He said, I can't do anything about it. Yes, you can. You can be a man where you are. Now, here's what I'm not talking about. We don't need Tarzan swinging on the grapevine through the kitchen. We don't need that. We don't need you going home now today and said, you heard that preacher. I'm the king of this castle. You're going to get crowned. That's what you're going to get. That's not what he's talking about. It's not what he's talking about at all. Be a man. Because boys see men. Boys see men. So, 5 hallmarks of a man. 1, be spiritually alert to danger. Number 2, be strong in this faith. Number 3, quit ye like men. Be a man, act like a man, dress like a man. Not just walk like a man, but let boys know what manhood's supposed to be about. You should be teaching these boys, tip their hat to a lady or take their cap off. Reach out there and shake their hand like they are somebody. Yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and yes, sir, and no, ma'am, to everyone that they meet. There shouldn't be no yas to it. Be a man. Number 4 is a word that he uses often, be strong. Emotional strength. Men, I'm going to tell you something. Your wives are dying on the inside for a lack of emotional care. Emotional care. They think differently. You may not have figured that out, but women think differently than men. There's a little bit of difference there. I was trying to counsel a couple, and she asked me, "Sir, did you read that book back there that men are from Venus, or women are from Mars and men are from Venus, or whichever way?" I said, "Yeah, I tried to read that." She said, "What'd you think?" I said, "Pretty much the title of the book was the book. Men are different. Men are here. Women are there. That's pretty much it. I've got that part figured out. Women need emotional care." That's not saying. In fact, Paul calls it the weaker vessel. He's talking about not in physical strength, not in capabilities, not in mental progression of mind or thought. Not talking about that at all. He's talking about women process differently, so you men be a man. There's just some times when you're thinking, I need to go buy her 14 roses. God, that's going to cost me $36. They don't want the roses. They just wish sometime you just stop and hug them and say, I love you. And I can't fix one blooming thing going on, but I love you. Now, women, am I getting anywhere close to truth today? Anywhere close? I know you can't fix anything, but could you just remind me that it's okay? Could you just remind me today that it's okay? Because the man, I don't do that. It's okay at my house. See, be strong. See, I don't know how much more I can take in this world. Oh, you can take a whole bunch more. Listen to me. If you're the one whining out on the corners of life, on the street corners of life about how bad it is, God's going to move right around you and find other men who are going to be strong. This is not a day for bending the knee to this culture. This is a day we stand up. Smack us right in the face if you want to, but we're going to stand. We're going to do our best to stand. We're going to stand strong. One of the reasons, as I went back for that funeral, I'm starting to have a hard time going back, putting people in the ground that I have loved many years. But one of the reasons I love this Mike, I stayed in touch with him more than any other member from down there, because every video that I put out after, and you just figure, Mike, I called him Big Mike. There would be a thing, sick 'em, preacher, go get him. That's awesome. That was his gift to me. Every week, almost every day. But that's being strong. See, it doesn't hurt any of you guys to look at another guy who is struggling and put your arm around him and loosely. Because the only thing I disagree with what Paul says in here, he says, greet one another with a holy kiss. Now look, that ain't happening. I know it was a cultural thing. We had a pastor years ago where I was, and he had read this verse and he preached on it. So he started that in his church. And I loved him to death, but I'd run from him. I'd say, I was in Cracker Barrel one day, I sat down, he came, and he was a big man. He came right over to me and planted a kiss on my cheek. I had 3 other men I was in a meeting with. He kissed me right on the cheek. I know what he meant, and I understand it, but that ain't happening. Be a man. Be a man. Be strong. These muscles need working out. These muscles they'll atrophy if you don't. And I'm just telling you, if you're not going to be strong spiritually, if you're not going to be strong emotionally for your wife or your girlfriend, your fiance, if you're not going to be strong and let them know that it's all okay, it's all okay. They don't expect you to have the answers. They know you pretty well. They figured it out. You hadn't figured it out yet. But just remind them it's going to be okay today. It's going to be okay. Be strong. So those are the four hallmarks of and the 5th one is this: everything you do has got to be done in love. And here's why this is hard, because I don't want to love everybody. Some people are easy to love, and some people you got to put the pedal to the metal just to like them a little bit. Because some people walk around behind. Oh, I saw what you did. That you made a mistake there. Oh, I love those guys. I love those guys. I've only pastored for 46 and a half years, so I know a lot of you know more than I do about pastoring. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. I got to do what I think the Lord calls us to do. We got to do it in love. We got to do it together. And see, you know the one thing that Moses didn't like, God kept telling him all along? Take all these people, A-L-L, these people. Moses said, hey, can I pick me out about 100,000 of them that I kind of like? We're good buddies, we're amigos, we barbecue on Saturday together. Can I? Nope, take them all. And see, the church is a body. The church has got to move together. And it has to move with a directional force of in being in love. And it's hard for a guy to say, Cowboy Jim, Mr. Jim, I love you, man. I love you. So that's kind of hard. It's almost, I love you, man. It's hard for guys. You ladies say that about every, oh, I love you, I love you. I love your flower. Oh, I love the little dog. I love your hair. I love you, and da-da-da. And I know, I love the chair. Oh, I love the chair. But see, we don't do that. We don't even like to hear it. And so it's hard. Every time love's mentioned, it's like, ugh. My wife has sent me today, I've gotten 3 texts from her, and I'm missing, talking about the body, I'm missing my right arm today, but she sent me 3 texts today, double hearts on them. Da-da-da, love you. Okay. So I have to go, where do they find those emoji hearts? I got to, why does she do that? So if she sends me 2 emoji hearts, I got to put 3 emoji hearts on there. We don't do it well. Here's the thing. Do all things in love. I can't preach to you and be angry with you and hope I can change you by being angry. That's not my job. It's none of my business. All I can do is teach and preach what the Word says with a heart that says, I love you and I hope you change. I hope that there can be something in your spirit that says, that resonates with me. I need that in my life. Because men are shells that are hard to be broken. Men sometimes can put on such a wall about them that they become plastic, that they don't look real, they don't sound real. Because it's hard to do all things in love. Disciplining children, that's the father. The father. You know my story. You know Brother Benny's story. We didn't have fathers. But everybody became a father to me. The high school principal was like my father. When I was a senior in high school, I was never in trouble, always a good guy, da-da-da. 2 other friends talked me into going across the street where a little cafe, little burger joint had opened up. Just to skip class and walk across the street and have a burger. I'm a senior. I'm 6 weeks away from graduation. Hey, I'm a senior, dude. What are you going to do to me? They talked me into it, so we go. And we're sitting there, and we order 3 burgers. Haven't even come yet. And I'm sitting there, and we're like, this is really cool. We skip class, and 3 burgers and fries are coming. All of a sudden, I felt a shadow. That high school principal had walked across the street and was shadowing. I never even touched that burger. Never even touched it. We got up. We walked back across the street. We followed him. We went over there as big seniors about to graduate, but we went back as... He got rid of the other 2 boys, and then it's just me and him. I said, what's this about? How come they got to go and I'm here? What's he going to use? What's he going to do? He said, you want to be suspended for 3 days or you want the licks? Just a minute. Run those options by me again. And then he did something. I saw tears coming down his cheeks. This is the same guy who went 12 miles every time we had a scout meeting and picked me up because I didn't have anybody to take me. Same guy who pinned the Eagle Scout on my shirt. The same guy every year when we had the FFA father-son banquet, he was my father. That day he'd always say, hey, I'm sure looking for somebody to be with tonight at the banquet. And now, he's about to discipline me. Tears running down his eyes. And I said, sir, you can't suspend me with, there's only 6 weeks left in school. He said, I guess it's the SWATs. And I'm telling you, that's the old day. You remember the high school principals that carried one of those in their back pocket? Holy moly. I'm a senior. Do you know how embarrassing and humiliating that is? I used every tool I could use. It didn't work. Man, it went like bam, bam, bam. And he said, now get out of my presence. I don't want to see you the rest of the day. See, I'd take 10 or 12 of those swats. What I couldn't take was a disappointed father who didn't want to see the son anymore. See, it's hard. It's supposed to be a father thing to discipline. It's supposed to be a father thing that looks at children and says, you know what? I'm going to have to do some things that you're not going to like, but I love you. I love you. And that's why American Christianity is starting to fall apart at the seams now. I'm telling you, we're shaking at the seams. I don't know how much longer, pastors, that we can be a Southern Baptist church. If somebody in that convention doesn't start standing up pretty soon and saying some things that they're against, I don't know how much longer we can hang on. I don't know how much longer we can be that. If we can't say, you know, da, 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 da. And when the president of our convention says, you know, hey, if people are coming to your church and they want to be called by a pronoun rather than their name, just go along with it. I am telling you, that's asinine. It's stupid. They got a name, use it. They're a man, they're a woman. It's so simple. But when every cave that we make opens the door for the next cave that we're going to have to make. And enough is enough. We're not caving. We're not backing down, letting up, shutting up. We're saying here, we're going to do all things in love. And that's why it's hard. Because we don't like to do things in love. We just like to do things. God did not put you on this earth, men, so that you could teach every ball game, every skill, that you could run your kids all over the world. And I'm thankful for it. And I did the same thing. I'm not talking about doing it. I'm talking about don't overlook the one thing that he did call you to do in all the other things that we're doing. And that is to raise those boys, raise those baby girls up in the nurtured, make them look like Jesus Christ. Do that in love. And when you have to go down to the school, because we're living in a culture that you don't have to listen to teachers. You don't have to listen to coaches. You know, you can do what you want. And if things go bad, don't you worry. I'll go down there. I'll talk to that principal. I can promise you, you and I came from a culture that if you got in trouble at school, that ain't nothing to what you're about to get when you get home. And that's why we went back the next day and said, man, Miss Redwine, I am sorry for acting up yesterday in school, and I won't ever do that again. What's that called? Doing all things in love so that you come out right. You come out right. You come out right. That's a man. There's a ministry. He said, you know, in verse 15, Stephanus, they're first fruits. There is a ministry. And look what it says about it. Look at verse 15 now. They were the first fruits of my ministry here, and they totally devoted themselves to ministry. Men, devote yourself to ministry. I said, well, I'm not called to be a preacher. You don't have to be. You are called to be a man. Therefore, you are ministry. This morning, I was ministry pulling up at a gas station and buying gas, and the pump wouldn't work. And so the lady says, I'm very sorry. I don't know what's going on with the pumps. And she was frantic, and I said, don't worry about it. It just gives me longer to get to visit with you. It's okay. Don't panic. Don't fret. See, we need men in the community that are telling people, don't worry, don't panic. The Lord's in control of this thing. It's not going to be the end of the world. And we'll do it in love. Everywhere you are the ministry. Devote yourself to that. What does devoted mean? What does devoted mean? It means surrender to. Because look in the same verse. Pastor Jimmy called it out there. Submit, submit, submit. That's the unmentionable word of this culture. We don't use the word submit because we don't like it, because all of us kind of tippy-toe around it. We don't want to submit to anything for any reason. Listen, I've married lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of families. And in the last 10 years, there's been very few that when we sit there, we have a little counseling, talk about it all. Listen, we don't want to use that Bible word. Oh, I already know what they're talking about. I already know. Let's use that. Let's kind of skirt around. So there are preacher framing words that we use to skirt around that. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. Men, if y'all would just close your ears for just a minute and didn't hear what I'm going to say to the women, it would help me. The more that a woman submits with reverence to her husband, the more he'll lead. Husbands are afraid of what their wives will think if they actually lead. Well, see, you just got to know my personality. God doesn't care about your personality. He's the one that gave it to you. He doesn't care about your see, here's the deal. No, here's the deal. You're a man. You are ministry. You are, and Holy Spirit speaks to you. Say a word to that guy. Use every opportunity that you can to be ministry. You can't hire enough ministers, folks, to get ministry done. You can't do it. Churches are going broke today paying people to do stuff that 25 and 30 years ago everybody in the church did. We're paying our way. We're trying to pay our way out of doing the work that he's called us to do. Devoted, devoted, devoted. I've given myself to this. That's ministry. He said these are the first fruits, and he's totally devoted. Word 3. Not only is there a man who has these 5 characteristics, but there is a ministry that every one of us have. He ends it in verse 18, talking about the message that every one of us has. And he calls these 3 guys out, and he said, well, there is Stephanus, there's Fortunatus, and there is Achaeus. These guys have a message written on them everywhere they go. Look what he says. Just like Paul did in First Timothy when we talked about, he said they are refreshers. Refreshers. Why do we drink? Anything. Why do we drink? We're thirsty. Why do we drink? Though when we're sitting around, hey, would you like a Coke? Oh, I don't use Coke anymore because they've decided that they're against election reform. So I guess it's Pepsi. That's a good Christian organization. We'll just support them a while. But when you drink a Coke or a Pepsi, we drink this. Why do people sit down and socially drink? I'll have a cocktail. Why do they do that? Because everybody else around them is doing the same thing. We want to fit in. Yeah. We want to fit in. I had a dear friend. He's been dead for about 15 years. But back in the old days, when you flew on an airplane, you dressed up. You dressed up. And he flew all over the world preaching all the time. You could smoke on it. You just get on an airplane, sit down, you could smoke. And there was nothing. Nobody said anything. Just smoke a cigarette. Got a lighter. And you smoke a cigarette. He got on an airplane one day, and he sat down. He was ready. Guy right beside him lit a cigarette. And you know how close you are. You're sitting there, and he's smoking, blowing smoking. He gets out a stick, and he gets out a lighter, and he lights that stick, and it's smoking everywhere. He looked at him and said, I'll put out mine if you put out yours. Why do we do that? And see, men, believe it or not, do it more than women do. Because women do it, don't even realize they're doing it. Why do women have circles? And everything they do is circle. See, why do they do that? It's drawing into the circle, coming into the circle, coming into this fellowship. Why do men not do that? We don't like circles. We like squares. Every guy's got his corner. Do all things in love. I'm telling you, men, women will follow if they see something to follow. Children will follow if they see something to follow. My son will be 50 years old next year. I haven't seen him in a while, weeks. He's gone a lot, his work. But when he comes in, his first thing is to address his mom. Hi, Mama. He's almost 50 years old. I said, son, how's it going? Did you do this? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You bragging on your son? No, I'm bragging on what is supposed to happen when we raise them up and cut them loose. But I'm of the opinion that they never leave. They always come back anyway. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, is he afraid of you? I don't know. But we're going to keep it just like that. What I'm trying to say to you men today is this. This church has unique opportunity, more so than any other church in this town. Now, I've walked every inch of this ground. I love to walk. I've walked all the fence rows. I've walked the new property. You know what I see down there on that new property? You know what I see in a year, maybe 2 years? I see some children who have gone through heartache and suffering, trauma, maybe abuse, and they're down there on the low plane of our property, and they're riding a dead, broke horse, and somebody's encouraging them, help get over their fear. I can see 4 or 5 of them riding at the same time. I can see so many things happening here, but they will not happen unless we men of this church say, you know what? I'm going to be a man. I'm going to raise a generation of boys and girls who are not mine. And that means, men, there is nothing wrong with men serving in a nursery. There's nothing wrong with men going back there in classes and sitting with women. There's absolutely nothing. The best nursery worker I ever had was a man. Now, he sat there with his wife. But the kids, and they weren't nursery, they were like in the 2 years. But what would happen is the little kids would come in and they'd see the ladies that they're standing there all like this. But those boys would walk straight to that man. And he'd pick them up. And he wasn't giving them candy every week. They want a mirror. They want to look like they want to be a man. You say, I got too much. I don't know. I'm not buying into this. I got too much baggage. I got too much of this. And I've gone too far in my life. If I were to change now, my wife would fall over dead with a heart attack. If I put her needs ahead of mine, or if I said, honey, don't worry about it, I don't have an answer, but this hug right now is just saying to you, it's all going to be okay somehow. I am saying to you, he said, watch you stand fast in the faith. Quit ye like men. Be strong and do all things in love. There is a message in your life, refresher. Be a refresher. Be someone who, when you walk through the door, that other people say, because there's some people that walk into your life, and when you see them, you're hoping they walk another way out. You're hoping they're going somewhere else. Yak, 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 yak. So, do all things in love. See, it wasn't that hard, was it? I mean, it wasn't that bad. I don't think I offended a man in here, but I did make us look at ourselves a little closer. Our heads are bowed and our eyes are closed. A man's man is not one who can whip everybody in the room, guys. A man's man is one who is gentle with everyone in the room until it requires a different emotion. And then they do what they do in love. You have friends and family that are falling apart. And you say, I sure hope things work out for them. Now I'm talking to men today. I'm talking to boys today. So I didn't come expecting this after Resurrection Sunday. I thought you'd talk more about the resurrection. I'm telling you, what this country has lost is men. This is what we've lost, is men being kind and loving and caring and using their presence to influence others for Jesus Christ. The only thing he's told us to do is do everything what we're going to do in love. Not for selfishness, not for gain, but for love's sake. So I say to every man in this room, how can you restart those batteries? Because it gets hard. It gets hard to find the words. It gets hard to say, I can change. It gets hard to say, I need to go say something to this friend. I need to help them out in some way. Because you are ministry, maybe through your pocketbook, maybe through encouragement, maybe taking this one fellow out who doesn't know Jesus and this week just talking to him about what the Lord has done in your life. We mourn today the passing of a great man, but what made him a great man was not that he was a great at what he did. What made them great was their submission and surrender so that God could use them in a way. And it's hard. Paul said, I've suffered the loss. And it's hard. And it's not going to get easier. It really won't. But men, there are widows in this town. There are widows in this church. Oh, how they could use just you going by one day and say, I brought some boys by. I'm going to mow your yard. I'm going to cut that tree limb out for you. What is that saying? It's saying we're doing all things in love. I'm talking about a little move here. I'm not talking about change. I'm just talking about one little step forward to say, I can be a man. I can do all things in love. I can be strong in the faith. I can allow boys to see what men look like and how men act. I tell you, Jesus says there before the cross, and they're screaming and hollering at him, and they're cursing him. They spit on him, plait the crown of thorns, and place it deep into the brow. The blood is running over his mouth and his eyes he can't see. They're whipping him with a cat of nine tails, and these are all men. They raise him up above the earth so he stands suspended between heaven and earth, not on either one. And he looks down and he says, Father, forgive them. Wow. See, is there somebody back there you can't forgive and you're never going to change because of what they've done to you? I'm telling you, the Lord wants to use you in the time you have left, because none of you know how much time that you have to be a man, to love, to encourage, to reach down and sometimes do and say things that are uncomfortable, to take on another child, to be responsible for them, to help them. So I say to you, men, I am begging you today, listen to the Holy Spirit. It's not an altar call that makes a difference. What makes a difference is you submitting, you surrendering. This church will not move forward with the one task that we have, which is to tell this community, to tell this world about Jesus Christ and his love and his grace. That's our only job. We can't do that if we're over here fussing and fighting with neighbors and cousins and business partners. We've got to get our priorities men. We've got to love them. We've got to be men. We're going to have to face some challenges because this culture is demanding more of us than we're willing to give as we all stand together. No singing at the moment, just every one of us in a moment of, heartfelt solitude. My brother, way before cell phones, sent me a picture. Now, my brother never even saw our father, but he sent me a picture. And it was a grave in San Diego, California. And it was called the Pauper's Field. There were 5 men buried in one spot. And he sent me the picture of this name that was on there, and it said Jack Schuster Shelton. He's buried in a pauper's grave outside of San Diego. An honored vet, World War II and Korea. Shot and wounded 3 different times. Saved men's lives. Died a drunk. I've never gone to that grave. I've never seen it. I've moved past that in my life because God gave me fathers all the way through it. I am telling you, none of us have an excuse. None of us have an excuse to say, well, here's the deal. I wasn't raised right. I didn't get this done. None of us have an excuse. You're part of a family that loves you. And this is a great, big, old, wonderful crowd here again today, and I thank God for it. But you're loved in this place. You're cared about in this place. I reached over to hug a lady who came in a wheelchair this morning. She whispered in my right ear, I love you. I know it. I believe it. We have to show that same love as men and demonstrate it. How many men in this room say today, preacher, with the Holy Spirit as my guide, I'm making a commitment not only to my family but to this church that I'm going to be more spiritually alert. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to demonstrate manhood to boys, and I'm going to do all things in love. And that's me. That's hit me right in the center of my being today, and that is my prayer. If that's you today, men, could you just be maybe brave enough to lift your hand and say, That's me. I'm not going to ask you to do anything else. I'm just going to ask you. All right. Thank you. All over the room. Thank you. Thank you, men. God bless you. You can put them down. It all begins before you take the next step of a surrender. Of a surrender. One of the blessed things that we have in our church is an open altar where people come and pray. And most Sundays when I walk down from here, there are little spots on this carpet where little specks of tears have hit this altar because we're broken over something. Don't ever lose that, church. I'm telling you, one of the blessings on this church is not just its leadership, but it is the spirit that we can pour our hearts out before God. If you're in this room, sir, and you do not know that full pardon of Jesus Christ through his blood, you've heard the gospel over and over, but you've never acted on it, and now is the day. Now is the time. Now is the day you confess Jesus Christ as your Savior. Right where you stand, you can do that. Dear Jesus, I'm a sinner. I know it and you know it, and today I confess my sin to you, and I ask you to save me. I ask you to swap out my bad heart and attitudes for your righteousness, and I confess you in Jesus' name. Men, if you're here and you've never been baptized, that's the first step. That's the very first step of obedience. You come and say, preacher, I need to get baptized. I need to follow the Lord in believer's baptism. But today I'm asking for men to come to this altar, and for women who need to pray, and for boys and girls who need to be loved, who need to be shepherded and cared for and mentored. May you use this time, may you use this place for his glory. Father, of our men, Lord, I believed if I told them I had a problem, there'd be 100 of them right there to help. I know that. These are good men. So help us to dig a little deeper. Help us to look a little harder on what you're calling us out to do in this wicked and perverse culture. In Jesus' name we pray. You need to come to this altar, then you come. If you're a father, a grandfather, soon-to-be husband, and the Lord is speaking to you, then you come as the Holy Spirit leads you to an altar to pray. You come.
Surrender all to you, all to you. I surrender all to you.
A church in Canada had the authorities come, and all you could hear was, "Get out." Now, I know the city, and I know the county. They're not going to bother us. But if we keep beating on the devil, I'm not too sure about the governor and as a federal. I'm just not too sure. But I want some men that says, I'll be right here with him. And I've got his back. And I'll be with him. And I'll stand with him, and we'll tell him, get out. We're not going to close. Amen. If you can do that as a man, you come and stand with our pastor and Jimmy. We're not quitting.
Victory in the Lord I say. Victory